In the quiet hum of hospital halls, a miracle whispered into the world. A tiny heart, once made for another creature, now beats inside a fragile human child. Through careful science and trembling hope, pig hearts, shaped by human hands, have given life to babies too small to wait. This is the story of how the impossible became real, and how the rhythm of one borrowed heartbeat may change the future for us all. You lie quietly, tucked in and weightless, and your breath begins to slow. Somewhere deep in the silence of the night, a baby's heartbeat pulses softly inside a tiny chest, weaker than it should be, struggling against time. This little heart, no larger than a walnut, has worked so hard for so long, yet it's tired. And tonight, we begin the story of how science, kindness, and a bit of borrowed life might change everything. Your heart beats too. A quiet, steady rhythm in your chest, faithful and unnoticed, until you realize that it began beating before you were born and will keep beating every moment of your life, never asking for rest. The heart is not just a pump, it's a messenger, a companion, a metronome of being. It is the very first instrument your body learns to play. But what happens when the song is out of tune? Every year, hundreds of babies are born with failing hearts, some missing chambers, others burdened with valves that do not close, or arteries twisted in the wrong direction. For many of them, medicine isn't enough. What they need is a new heart. But finding a heart small enough, healthy enough, and available at just the right moment, that is a miracle. And miracles don't happen on demand. So, scientists began asking an almost unthinkable question. What if we could grow hearts to order? Not just in theory, not someday, but now, from animals whose biology already shares an uncanny rhythm with our own, are more like us than we might imagine. Their organs are close to ours in size and structure. Their hearts beat to a similar tempo. Their skin heals like ours. And most strangely of all, their biology can be altered with delicate precision, like tuning a violin string. Scientists have learned how to rewrite the tiniest details of a pig's DNA, snipping out the genes that cause rejection and replacing them with human-friendly ones. These are not ordinary pigs. These are genetically engineered to be donors, to save lives, quietly and without ceremony. Picture this: a field of sunlight. Somewhere far away, a piglet is born, not just as livestock, but as a lifeline. Its cells hold a silent secret, a blueprint that has been changed ever so slightly. Changed so that, one day, a heart from that pig might beat inside the chest of a newborn baby who would not survive without it. This science is called xenotransplantation, xeno meaning foreign, and transplantation meaning to move from one place to another. It has been a dream and a nightmare of medical research for more than a century. Early attempts failed cruelly. Organs from animals were rejected within hours. The immune system, always protective, always suspicious, treated the new tissue like an invader and destroyed it. But today, that has begun to change, because now, with CRISPR, gene editing, and other incredible technologies, scientists can gently silence the genes in pig hearts that trigger human immune attacks. They can coat the cells in human-like markers so that the body says, not stranger, but self. And just like that, or almost like that, the line between species begins to blur, not in a frightening way, but in a deeply hopeful one. You might be wondering, how real is this? And the answer is, real enough to be in trials. Real enough that pig heart valves have already saved thousands of lives in humans. Real enough that, in the lab, scientists have seen tiny pig hearts start beating again inside fragile, infant-sized chests, connected by tubes and wires and prayers, not fiction. Just science finally catching up to compassion. Imagine, then, a future where a parent no longer waits by the NICU window, watching monitors and tubes, hoping for the phone call that may never come. Imagine that instead they are told, "We have a heart and it's ready." It may not have come from another human, but it is just as alive, just as warm, just as full of possibility. Your breath is soft now. You're floating through thoughts like gentle clouds, each one filled with wonder and quiet. And as we close this first chapter, you feel it, the deep rhythm of hope, because even in a world of complications and questions, the heart, in all its forms, still beats on dot, and tomorrow night will follow it deeper into the story. How do we know the heart is safe? Can it really grow with a child? And what does it mean ethically, emotionally, to share life across species? But for now, rest. The heart, after all, beats best in peace. Asterisk, you imagine a newborn baby, so small their entire hand barely wraps around your finger. Their heartbeat, fast and fluttering, is like a distant hummingbird's wings, soft against your chest. But sometimes these tiny hearts are born fragile, with chambers that do not form right, with valves that leak, or with rhythms that skip and stumble. And in the sterile silence of neonatal intensive care units, machines hum quietly beside the tiniest patients, keeping them breathing while doctors search for a miracle In the stillness of these early days, time moves both too fast and too slow. Some infants wait for heart transplants before they've even learned how to smile. But the line for a new heart is long, and babies, so gentle, so vulnerable, can't always afford to wait. That's where this new hope begins to stir, quietly, gently, in laboratories where science bends toward compassion. You may wonder, why a pig? Why not something closer to us, something more human? But evolution, it turns out, is full of gentle surprises. A pig's heart, in size and shape, is surprisingly similar to our own. It beats in rhythm and pumps in pulses that echo our own biology. And in the thoughtful hands of genetic engineers, these pig hearts are no longer just animal organs. They are being rewritten, cell by cell, to carry the blueprint of hope for human life. In a quiet laboratory, soft lights glow on glass containers, where tiny heart cells pulse in warm nutrient baths. Scientists sit beside them, watching as cells beat in unison like a lullaby for the future. Genes from the pig are carefully edited. One by one, the markers that trigger immune rejection are removed. One by one, human-friendly signals are inserted. The result is a hybrid creation, a pig heart made to feel invisible to the human immune system. A gift of nature and nurture combined. You follow the journey of one such heart once nestled inside a gentle animal, now preserved in sterile protection. It has been prepared with great care, its surfaces smooth, its rhythms rehearsed in mock circulatory systems that mimic a human body. When placed into the chest of a baby with no other options, it begins its duty not with grand gestures, but with a quiet thump. One beat, then another, then many more, steady and strong. Imagine the silence of the room as doctors watch. Monitors light up, a tiny chest rises and falls, and slowly, like a flower opening to morning light, a life begins to return. This is not a fairy tale. It's the first step in a new chapter of medicine. One where we don't wait for tragedy to knock at the door of another family, but instead build lifelines through gentle precision and bold imagination. Outside the hospital walls, life continues. Birds drift across the sky. The wind moves through the trees. Somewhere, a scientist who worked on this pig heart transplant walks home under a moonlit path, hands in their pockets, carrying both exhaustion and quiet joy. Create is more than a surgery, is a promise that some babies may now sleep peacefully, their chests rising evenly, their mothers watching them without fear, and still questions remain. How long will the heart last? Will the child grow well? What does this mean for the future of transplant medicine, for children, for adults, for all of us? The answers are not all here yet. But this chapter has begun, and the pages are being written in real time, gently, carefully, with every tiny heartbeat. As you rest now, breathe slowly. Picture those tiny hearts. Picture the delicate work behind each one. Let your own heart beat in rhythm, not just with life, but with all, for the lengths we'll go to protect it. And as the night deepens and the stars hold steady above, know that chapter 3 awaits with a question. How did we even learn to rewrite life itself? What powers lie in our grasp when we begin editing nature's code, not to control it, but to heal, long before the pig hearts ever pulsed in human chests, long before we whispered words like Xenotransplantation into hospital corridors. There was a deeper journey, quietly unfolding one that took us into the very alphabet of life itself. DNA 3. Letters that hold entire blueprints. Codes written in molecules, spiraling and coiled in the core of every cell, telling each part of the body what to become and how to behave. One strand tells a heart when to beat. Another tells a cell how to grow. Like a symphony, all of it must play in harmony, else the music turns to silence. Now imagine being able to edit that music, to go in note by note and change just a single wrong rhythm so that the entire body plays true. That is what scientists have learned to do, not with scalpels or chemicals, but with tools like CRISPR, discovery as precise as it is powerful. CRISPR doesn't look like much. It's a molecule, really tiny, invisible to the eye. But give it the right coordinates and it becomes like a scalpel made of light, able to snip DNA exactly where you want. Scientists first used it to study fruit flies, then plants, then mice, and one day they pointed this tool at the DNA of pigs, not to harm them, but to make them safe for us in those pig cells. They searched for the genes that caused rejection in humans. There were many genes that told our bodies, this is foreign, fight it. One by one, those were turned off. Then, human genes were added in their place, genes that whispered instead, this is familiar, let it live. Bit by bit, the pig cells became more human-like, more welcome to our biology. It's strange to think that something as invisible as a gene could change the shape of destiny. But it can, and it has. And it will dot in quiet labs across the world. Scientists raise these modified pigs gently. They live in highly controlled, sterile environments, monitored with care and respect. They are bred not for food, but for life, for the chance to give a child something they were born without, a healthy heart, But the story is more than science. It is also deeply human. Every step of this journey carries questions of ethics, of morality, of faith. Is it right to raise animals for parts? Can a heart ever truly be human if it came from something else? Will the child grow up feeling different? Or will they simply grow up? These questions don't have easy answers. And yet, for a parent watching their baby's chest rise and fall beneath the soft hum of machines, the question they ask is simpler. Can this save them? And for the doctors, the scientists, the ethicists, the engineers, the answer is this: we are trying. We are learning. And yes, one day, we may. You picture a pig farm, now not the kind you've seen in pictures, but something quieter, cleaner, gentle light, filtered air, caretakers in gowns. Somewhere, a piglet with a special purpose is being fed, monitored, and watched with reverence. Not because it's different, but because it might help save someone's child. And so we find ourselves here, at a point in history where the line between what is natural and what is designed grows blurry, where we no longer just accept the hand we're dealt, but rewrite the cards, one gene at a time, not for power, not for vanity, but for the most ancient reason of all, to heal as you lie still now. Imagine the invisible threads that run through your body, DNA spiraling through every cell, instructions written in code, older than memory. Know that somewhere, in a quiet lab, someone is learning how to read those threads more clearly, how to gently edit their flaws, and how to give life back to those who were born with less. Let this knowledge settle like a lullaby. We are learning the language of life, not to rewrite its poetry, but to let more voices sing. And as the night deepens and your breath slows, Chapter 4 waits ahead with a question that stirs both awe and responsibility. If we can rewrite life, do we? Draw the line. Asterisk. What happens when we finally reach the edge, when science, that patient sculptor of miracles, touches the line where nature says, no more? This is where we now stand, with one hand holding a scalpel made of light, and the other reaching into futures once sealed off by fate. We have taken pig hearts and made them beat in human chests. We have silenced rejection with edits to invisible code. We've stepped into a realm once reserved for dreams or divinity. But with every step forward, a shadow walks beside us. Should we? You see, not long ago, a baby was born with a heart too small to carry them forward. The surgeons tried. They always do. But no donor match came. The clock ticked louder each night. The baby's skin paled. The monitors beeped like whispers. And then, in a moment that bent the very arc of possibility, a surgeon made a call. Not for a human heart, but a genetically engineered one. One that came not from loss, but from planning. Not from tragedy, but from design. The heart came chilled in a sterile box. It was small, pink, beating still. A pig heart, yes, but one. Shaped by human minds to be a bridge across species, across biology, across death. It was transplanted, and it worked. Not forever, not yet, but for longer than any believed. It bought time precious, golden time for the baby's body to grow, for the family to hope. That child's story became a quiet spark in the halls of medicine. Proof that what we imagined could now be touched. But is that enough? There are questions we must whisper, even as we marvel. If we can raise animals for organs, where do we stop? Hearts, yes, but lungs, skin, brains. Are we using nature or bending it? Are we playing God or becoming his instrument? Ethicists debate this in rooms with books and warm lamps, their voices measured, deliberate. But a mother in the ICU does not debate. She watches the rise and fall of her baby's chest and prays only that it keeps rising. For her, and for many, saving a life isn't a question of philosophy. It's a heartbeat, and yet we cannot ignore the weight of the choices we're making. These pigs are not ordinary. They are born into sterile labs. They never feel sun on their backs or mud beneath their hooves. Their purpose is singular: to be a match, to be someone's miracle. Do they know? Of course not, but we do. And that knowing must carry weight. Still, isn't this what humanity has always done? Taken what is and asked what could be. We crossed oceans before we understood stars. We lit cities before we tamed fire. And now we rewrite hearts not with arrogance, but with hope. Hope that a baby will live long enough to take their first steps. Hope that one day no child will die waiting for a donor. Hope that a future without limits might still hold compassion. As you drift deeper into sleep, the world grows quiet, but the work continues. In labs, in hospitals, in conversations between people who dare to wonder. We are building something new, not perfect, not final, but a bridge. From one species to another, from death to life, from fear to courage. The edge of what's possible is not a wall, it's a door. And we've begun to open it. Tomorrow we'll walk further in. Imagine the world they'll inherit. These children who lived because a pig's heart beat inside them first. They won't remember the first days. Those fragile moments under the blue wash of NICU lights. They won't know the weight of the decisions their doctors made, or how close time came to running out, but their parents will. The nurses will. The hearts of surgeons will carry those memories like hidden scars. The children, though, will grow. They'll run, laugh, fall off bicycles, and cry over skinned knees instead of silent monitors. They'll draw suns with uneven yellow rays and write their names on school books. They'll shout across playgrounds and worry about birthdays and best friends and whether they can stay up 5 more minutes past bedtime. Life, unremarkable and precious, and one day when they are old enough to ask, they will learn. You had a heart from a pig, someone will say gently, maybe a parent, maybe a doctor. Maybe they'll hear it by accident through a slip of a word or a curious article online, and they'll pause, confused, then wide-eyed. Some will ask, am I still human? And the answer will come steady and true. Yes, entirely. Because what makes us human isn't the origin of our organs, it's the choices we make, the love we give, the dreams we carry. These children will grow with borrowed time stitched into their chests, but they will make that time their own. Still, questions will bloom in the quiet moments. What happens as they age? Will the modified cells grow with them? Systems one day wake up and rebel. Will they always be tethered to medicine, to monitoring, to wondering? These are answers we don't yet fully hold. But each day, researchers inch closer. Each child who thrives adds a data point, a spark, a reason to keep going. The science is not static, it evolves. And with it, the hope sharpens. But this future isn't just medical, it's cultural. Will these children be celebrated or feared? Will people whisper when they pass by? Will some question the naturalness of their lives, as though biology should obey tradition instead of compassion? Perhaps, but perhaps not, because the world is shifting. We've accepted prosthetic limbs that outrun sprinters, cochlear implants that let the deaf hear birdsong, retinal chips that restore lost sight. Our boundaries of natural stretch with every life we save. And maybe, just maybe, hearts from pigs will no longer feel. Strange but sacred. Symbols not of desperation, but of determination. These children are not experiments. They are not anomalies. They are the first notes of a new song humanity is learning to sing. And one day, when they're old and gray, they'll tell their grandchildren, I was saved by something that once oinked, and they'll laugh, and their grandchildren will roll their eyes. Because by then, the world may look back and wonder how we ever thought this was anything but beautiful as you close your eyes tonight. Remember them, not just the babies, with tiny stitches and brave little hearts, but the pigs who gave those hearts, the the scientists who dreamed of editing genes. Not for glory, but for grace, the parents who stood at the edge of loss and found, against all odds, a bridge, and the world that is slowly learning to say yes to life in all its unexpected forms. Tomorrow will come, and with it, more children, more questions, more miracles stitched from what once seemed impossible. The story is still being written, but for now, let your breath steady. Let your thoughts soften. The future is holding its breath, and it begins gently with a heartbeat. Asterisk, when we begin to change the blueprint of life. Even for the most loving reasons, we step into sacred ground. It's one thing to treat disease, to repair, to replace, but to edit, to create a life form designed for another's survival, raises questions that echo far beyond the walls of any hospital. Not just in science, but in spirit. Is it right? Is it fair? Does the good outweigh the unknown? In quiet corners of the world, people ask these things, not because they reject the miracles, but because they want to hold them gently, as we would a sleeping child, with care and reverence. Faith leaders, ethicists, philosophers, they all enter the conversation now. Because this isn't only about medicine anymore. It's about meaning. Some wonder if we're playing God, but others ask, what if this is God's work too? What if the ability to create, to save, to rewrite tragedy into survival isn't hubris, but compassion evolved? What if, in crafting hearts from pigs, we are simply becoming more human, not less? Still, the tension remains. What about the animals? Some see them only as resources, bred with purpose and function. But others feel the ache knowing that a creature with soft eyes and curious snout was born into a world it never got to explore. Only to save another species, they ask, can we honor the life we take, even when we take it for life? And so, a new kind of respect must be born, not just in science, but in soul. Every heart taken from a pig must carry with it not just biological precision, but ethical humility. We must say thank you, not in words, but in how we proceed responsibly, transparently, kindly, because the line between miracle and mistake is razor thin when progress outpaces reflection. There is another layer. Still culture, religion, identity. In some belief systems, pigs are considered unclean. In others, they are simply food. In others, still, all animal life is sacred and must not be used. So what happens when a baby's survival depends on a heart their faith forbids? No law can answer that. No study. No algorithm. Only conversation. Can only empathy, and yet around the world. Parents of all beliefs, are coming forward. Some bend traditions to embrace the gift. Others hold firm and hope for human donors instead. There is no single answer, and there never will be. But there is dialogue now. A widening of perspectives. A new willingness to listen. In this, we grow. And in growing, we make room for both science and spirit. For logic and love. For numbers and narratives. Because progress without ethics is dangerous. But ethics without progress can be cruel. So as we move forward, more children are saved by pig hearts that pulse with promise. We must remember. This is not just a medical story. It is a human one, a spiritual one, a story of how far we'll go to keep a child alive, and how gently we must tread when we rewrite the rules of life itself. So tonight, before sleep takes you, think of the balance we now walk. Think of the doctor in the white coat, hands steady, eyes tired, wondering if this new surgery will work. Think of the farmer who raises genetically modified pigs, not for meat, but for miracles. Think of the ethicist in a quiet room, writing papers on dignity and sacrifice. And think of the baby, sleeping, breathing, alive, because we dared, because we questioned and dared anyway, because we believed that sometimes the sacred is not in what we avoid, but in what we create when we create it with care. Let that truth settle softly in your chest like a heartbeat. Asterisk it always begins with one child saved, one surgery that worked, one genetically engineered heart that beat where none should have. But no act of healing ever stays still. It ripples outward into the arms of parents who thought they would never hold their baby for more than days, into the pages of textbooks rewritten by what once seemed impossible, into the dreams of a future where transplant lists don't end in silence, because when one life is saved, others begin to hope, and when hope gathers, it grows bolder. Already, the science is moving faster than even its champions imagined. Pig kidneys, pig livers, pig lungs, all being studied, shaped, adjusted. A farm in Alabama is raising animals with immune profiles so precise they feel like nature's backup plan, not for experiments, for survival, one day. Perhaps sooner than we think, children will not have to wait in the limbo of donor shortages. Instead, they'll be matched in days, not months. Hearts will arrive not in coolers flown overnight from tragedy, but from biobanks, built with precision and care. And not just children, adults, too. Those with failing hearts, those born with genetic flaws, those living in countries where access to transplants was once impossible, because genetically modified animal organs could be made scalable, accessible, affordable. This is the ripple. But ripples are not only scientific, they are emotional, cultural, global. Imagine a world where losing a child to organ failure becomes rare, where stories of waiting and losing fade into distant history. And imagine what comes next. If we can build hearts, can we build better ones, stronger, longer lasting, resistant to rejection entirely? Just sustain life, but extend it. We are now standing at the foot of something far bigger than organ transplant. We are standing at the edge of redefining what it means to be human. Will our bodies still be purely ours if they're part animal? Will a child who lives thanks to a pig heart face questions when they're older? Will society need new language, new categories, new rituals? We don't yet know, but the ripples have begun. And even as some worry about what this might mean for identity, purity, or the future of natural biology, see something different. A collaboration, a moment in evolution where species did not divide but merged. For mercy's sake, not a loss of what we are, an expansion. The pig, long dismissed in many cultures as lowly, dirty, or expendable, may become the animal most responsible for life in the 21st century. That alone is a ripple worth watching tonight. As you reflect on this journey in gene editing, on ethics, on the tiniest of lives spared from loss, know this: the ripples are real, and they are still moving. Each story, each saved heartbeat, each family restored, is sending quiet waves into tomorrow, not in grand declarations, but in cribs that are no longer empty, in footsteps that now echo through homes once filled with sorrow, in futures that, for the first time, are possible. So we keep going, carefully, curiously, gratefully, because when science and compassion walk side by side, even the most radical ripple begins with the gentlest touch, a heartbeat, one that shouldn't have been there, and yet it is. Asterisk, in the corner of a quiet nursery, under the dim glow of a mobile spinning above the crib, a baby sleeps. Not just any baby, a baby with a heart that began in another species, a heart that should never have beat for a human. And yet, it does, steady, strong, silent in its miracle. No one passing this home would ever guess that something extraordinary has happened here. There are no signs, no monuments, no news cameras left, just warmth, just life. And that is the point. The greatest revolutions are often invisible, felt only in the smallest rooms, in the softest moments, in the breath of a baby whose lungs rise and fall because science dared to hope, because a team of surgeons dared to operate, because a mother dared to say yes. This story, like all stories, will one day be retold in different voices. The child, now older, may ask, "Where did my heart come from?" And someone will say, "It came from kindness, from research, from a pig raised not for food or profit, but for healing. It came from people who believed your life was worth rewriting the rules for," and perhaps the child will smile, or cry, or sit quietly with the knowledge. But one thing is certain, they will be alive to ask the question, and that, in itself, is everything. What began in sterile labs and surgery rooms ends here, in a childhood made possible in first steps, in scraped knees, in birthday candles blown out with laughter. No one remembers the controversy anymore. Not really. The debates, the headlines, the fears, all fades. What remains are the results, alive children reunited. Families, the steady evolution of what medicine can do when it moves with both precision and purpose. And now, more hospitals are opening their doors to xenotransplant trials. More nations are adjusting their laws. More pigs are being raised with gentle care and genetic tailoring, not to serve meat, but to serve life. We are no longer standing on the edge of the future, we are in it. In a world where the impossible has become standard, where the once unthinkable has become simply protocol. And yet, despite all this, the heart remains a symbol of something deeper than science. It is not just a pump, it is poetry. It is the seat of courage, of love, of meaning. So what does it mean when that heart comes from another animal? Perhaps nothing, or perhaps everything. Maybe it means that love does not need to be pure to be powerful. That humanity can be redefined not by what separates us from other creatures, but by what connects us. That compassion is not limited to our species, and maybe, most beautifully of all, it means this: every life saved by a pig's heart is not a story of biology. It is a story of unity, the kind no war, no politics, no prejudice can erase. Tonight, the child sleeps. Tomorrow, they will grow. They will run, fall, rise, and love. And somewhere, someone else will be told their baby has a chance to, because of what happened here, because of the heart that changed everything. Asterisk.